Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev is a realized master, mystic, and yogi. He has shown the way for people to attain to their natural joy and to live life with experience from one's own inner nature. His presence is filled with grace and compassion. Sadhguru's scientific approach towards spirituality and work towards the upliftment of humanity have received accolades worldwide. The words that come from him in intensity and utmost clarity, from his deep understanding and wisdom, can change the very core of the being. Belonging to no particular tradition, Sadhguru incorporates what is most valid for the modern person from the spiritual sciences. His work, an outpouring of his blissfulness, finds expression in the form of a ceaseless offering to help all beings. Available to all who are willing, Sadhguru's life is an invitation to the divine through individual transformation. Welcome to the silent revolution of self-realization.
It is a great pleasure to have in our midst Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev ji, who has emerged in the last few years as one of the foremost propounders of yoga and meditation in the country. I had the great pleasure of visiting the Isha Foundation near Coimbatore and the unique Dhyana Lingam that Sadhguru ji has built there. It is really a one-of-a-kind temple anywhere in India.
Why we are referring to the mind as a circus. Circus is not a mess. Circus is a very coordinated activity, made to look like a mess. Deliberately made to look like a mess, but an extremely well-coordinated activity. That's what circus is. So on one level, it is a mess. On another level, it is a highly coordinated activity. Today much work has gone into looking at the activity of the mind or the brain as such. If you look at the way the neurons are firing in the brain and what is happening, there is a tremendous sense of cohesiveness in this activity. It is that cohesiveness which is translating into the function of the body. 1 billion things are happening in this body right now, simply because there is a very, very extremely highly coordinated play and dance of neurons in the brain. But mind as an experience for people, in most people's experience, unfortunately, it's become a mess. So it's a circus. Both the aspects of the circus are there. Even the clown in the circus is a gymnast, hugely coordinated, but he's made to look like a clown. So the outer expression may be that of a clown, but he's hugely talented and balanced in his activity. That is the experience of most people when it comes to their mental activity. So what is the possibility of this circus? How the circus can take you to great heights how this circus can also render you to the depths of hell within yourself. Both are possible. Both these possibilities are very much alive for every one of us right now. So how we conduct this circus is a whole thing. How much of it can we take charge of is a whole thing. Why is it that mind, which is the most miraculous instrument, which is the most miraculous possibility in our life, has also become a misery manufacturing machine on this planet? Every kind of misery that human beings are going through is manufactured in their mind. Why is it for one person, mind seems to be a pleasant experience, and for another person, mind seems to be a torture? Unable to bear the mental torture, people have invented various kinds of deviations, various kinds of perversions on this planet just to somehow deal with the mess of the mind. And these perversions might have given them temporary relief, but after some time, it again multiplies the mess, it doesn't really take it away. The moment your intellect, let's differentiate between these two. Intellect is like a scalpel which is constantly cutting through everything. Your ability to discriminate between one thing and the other is purely because of your intellect. You can make a distinction between me and this seat only because your intellect is functioning. You know that you must come through the door, not through the wall, only because your intellect is functioning. Without the activity of the intellect, you cannot discriminate. So the basic process of discrimination, setting things apart, is happening because of the intellect. So this is like a scalpel which is cutting everything to give you some sense of perception. If a knife has to cut through anything effortlessly and well, it's extremely important that whatever that it cuts through does not stick to it. You cut a cake today, somebody said it's their birthday today, happy birthday to her. You cut a cake today, tomorrow you cut bread, day after tomorrow you cut something else. If all of it, the residue of it goes on sticking to this knife, after some time, this knife becomes a useless knife. Whatever you cut, I think some of you in your kitchens you must have experienced, the ladies, you cut onions with this knife. After that you go and cut mangoes, you go and cut apples, everything tastes like onion. Isn't it so? Because the residue of what you cut through, once it sticks to the knife, now that knife in many ways becomes more of a nuisance than of help. Or in other words, once your intellect gets identified with something or the other, after that, your intellect gets chained with identifications. Once this happens, you have a completely distorted experience of the mind. Your mind, that which should have been a ladder to the divine, unfortunately has become a stairway to hell. Simply because it is so identified with so many things. People keep telling me this, Sadhguru, for you, the biggest thing in your life just happened unasked. Maybe you're chosen. How will it happen to us? It is not a question of anybody's choosing anything for you. It is just that if you keep your intellect unidentified with anything, starting from your body, if you do not even identify yourself with a body, that if you do not look at yourself not even as a man or a woman, your family, your qualifications, your society, your caste, creed, community, nation, whatever, a million other identifications that you take on in your life. If you do not identify your intellect or if you do not encumber your intellect with any of these identifications, every human being will naturally lead himself on to his ultimate nature. There is no other way. When we started the home school, the first questions that came up is this going to be a spiritual school? Are you going to teach them spirituality? I said, that's one thing we won't do. So if children are brought up without any sense of identity, you will see every human being will naturally lead himself towards his enlightenment. So the circus of the mind, if you have to experience it as a miraculous, coordinated activity rather than as a mess, the most important and crucial thing is your intellect is not identified. Because once it's identified, your perception is so distorted, and this distortion permeates into every aspect of your life. You definitely have heard of Akbar and Birbal. When Akbar was an infant, his mother died. Or because she was a queen, they got another woman to breastfeed Akbar. And obviously that woman had a son. Then Akbar grew up into a great emperor. Because this woman had breastfed the emperor, they had given a whole village to her. And that boy also grew up into a man, but not much of a man. And he wasted and squandered the opportunity. He owned the whole village, but he wasted it and squandered it and lost it. And he was going through bad times. So one day, he thought, anyway, my mother has breastfed the emperor, so he owes something to me. In a way, I'm his brother. If I go and ask him something, he cannot refuse. With this idea, he came to Akbar. When he came, Akbar treated him with great respect, welcomed him in his court, honored him, introduced him to everyone as his brother, because both of them have drunk the milk of the same mother. And he stayed as a guest, attended many meetings which he could not understand the head or tail of. He was totally out of place. But Akbar took him around well-dressed, like his brother. After being there for a few weeks, he thought, my misfortune is only because I don't have good people around me. See, Akbar has such wonderful people. Above all, he has Birbal. That's why he's doing so well. If only I also had someone like Birbal around me, I would also become a great man. He expressed this to Akbar. He said, you have Birbal and you have become so great. If I could also have someone like Birbal, you have so many people, you can give Birbal to me. Now, this boy is a few days older to Akbar, and Akbar treated him as an elder brother. When his elder brother requests, give something to me, I'm in bad times, he could not refuse. So Akbar said, you can take Birbal. When Birbal came that evening, Akbar announced in the court, Birbal is leaving with my brother, my elder brother, tomorrow morning. Birbal looked at this situation that he has to go with this fool to the village. And Birbal immediately said, "Oh, Your Majesty, your elder brother definitely needs wise company, but I have a better idea. I can send my elder brother with him." "Is that okay?" they asked. So that man looked at this, if Birbal is so wonderful, his elder brother must be even more wonderful. He said, "That's fine with me, I'll take Birbal's elder brother. He must be even better." So Akbar also was relieved because though he wanted to be generous to his brother, he did not want to lose Birbal. He was also relieved. So next day morning, in the court, grand send-off is being organized. Birbal came into the court with a bull on the tow. Akbar said, "What is this?" Birbal said, "This is my brother. We drank the milk of the same mother." Once your intellect gets identified with something, then you are all messed. So this identity is not on one level, it is on many, many, many levels. Because of this complex system of identification, you are in a complex mess. If you do not identify yourself with anything, I must share this, I hope it is received with the necessary understanding, because this was a certain moment of intimacy, a certain moment of many things that cannot be expressed. I was just 14 years of age. My mother, who was a very devout, dedicated woman, for her, her whole life was her husband and 4 children, and she never thought anything about herself, she just gave her life to us. So there was no need for her to ever express that I love you or anything, such a thing was never expected. Whether she loves you or not is never a question, because her whole life is for you. So there's no question of whether she loves you or doesn't love you, such a question never occurred in anybody's minds. But on that particular day, I developed a kind of relationship with her where though I was the youngest in the family, I was like her elder brother in many ways. She would share things that she wouldn't share with anybody, and when I took advantage of that and joked, she would always regret, "Why am I sharing these things with you?" So on a certain day, because of some interaction, somehow she grew a little tender in her heart and she expressed her love to me, not necessarily in I love you business, somehow. I grew up in such a way right from my childhood because of my memory, because I could remember things that happened when I was just 2-3 months of age. It just didn't allow me to be like a normal child, I thought like an adult. So because of this, nobody could take me on their lap, nobody could fondle me, nobody could carry me. I always preferred to walk and do my own things. Even though my brother and sister were older to me, were used to be carried and fondled and all that, I did not get those things because somehow it was difficult to do those things to me. I'm still difficult, see. So this relationship was very different from normal thing, but that day she was somehow, some tenderness and she wanted to express. She expressed something towards me. I simply asked, for me it was just very matter of fact. I just asked, if I was born in the next house, would you still feel like this about me? She just broke down, it hurt her very much. She broke down and went away. I didn't intend to hurt her, I just asked a simple question, which these questions are constantly going on in me about everything, not just about one thing. And after some time, she came, still tears in her eyes, she came and fell at my feet, and then she went away. I said, that's good for her, some kind of realization within herself. Why I'm saying this is, our ways of thinking and feeling are so deeply identified with things we are associated with. Our body, our parentage, our children, our wife, our husband, our home. Not just that, with just about anything, isn't it? With just anything and anything. I remember my grandfather used to always eat in a gold-rimmed plate. He was a rich man and a very proud man. If at any time for some reason, even when he travels, another traveling gold plate has to travel with him. Suppose that plate is not there, he just won't eat. He cannot eat. The same damn food. What is the problem? Whether you eat in a gold plate or a steel plate, okay, you want to do things in style, it's okay. But the identification with something as simple as that is so deep that if he eats on another plate, he will become sick, his stomach will be disturbed. Your identifications are so very deep with big things and small things. Once you're identified like this, your mind is a mess of a circus. It will never raise to any great peak or pitch, it will be just a mess. Once you're very deeply identified, it is better not to insult the circus by calling your mind a circus. It's more a mental diarrhea. Non-stop, it is just going on endlessly. This cannot be stopped with a pill. People have tried the drink, the drug, all kinds of things, but it cannot be stopped that way. Only when you get disidentified, when you're able to be involved but not entangled, only then this is possible. Right now, because somewhere people realized that this identification is causing so much trouble, immediately they started giving you an antidote: detachment. The moment you detach yourself, your ability to experience life also is gone, because life can only be experienced with involvement. Where there is no involvement, there is no life. Is that so? Is that so? Don't sit there with such detachment. Involvement I'm talking about. Life cannot be experienced unless there is involvement. The deeper the involvement, the deeper the experience of life. However small the event may be, however small a piece of life may be, if you are deeply involved, it's a very great experience for you. Nothing dramatic or spectacular need to happen in your life. If you're deeply, deeply involved with the simplest aspect of your life, you will see every aspect of your life is spectacular. So involvement is the only way to experience life. No involvement, there is really no life. But why is so much detachment being taught everywhere? Fear of entanglement. It is from that fear, detachment is always being propagated. If you detach yourself from life, you're avoiding life. If you really want to avoid life, there are more efficient ways to do it. You know, you can jump off a mountain. You can consume poison, you can hang yourself. Whatever we do, we must do it efficiently, isn't it? If you want to really avoid life, you just have to hang yourself. What is the idea? Are you here to experience life or are you here to avoid life? Which way is it? Experience life? Can you experience life unless you're involved? But Right now there is a fear of entanglement. If I involve myself, maybe I'll get entangled. Entanglement has happened because of the discriminatory nature of your involvement. You're only involved with this one, not with that one. Your involvement is coming from a certain identification. I am involved with this person because this is my wife, this is my husband, this is my child, this is my home, this is my that. It is coming because of a certain identity. Otherwise, there's no involvement with life. It is the identification which is causing the entanglement, not the involvement. If your involvement is beyond your identification, you will see involvement brings absolute joy of life. If your involvement was indiscriminate, you were simply involved with every life around you just the same way. The very air that you breathe, the very land that you're standing on, if you are deeply involved, you will see involvement enhances life in a tremendous way. If life is not enhanced within you, all the higher possibilities of life also will never happen to you. In the process of becoming spiritual or trying to be spiritual, lot of people have become like goats. I don't want to insult the goats. Because if you practice how not to be involved with life, then slowly you will become more and more lifeless, less of life as days go by. Too much of mind, very little of life. As life recedes in you, you will see nothing fantastic can ever happen. Only if life is exuberantly happening within you, it can carry you to higher possibilities. So mind is not a cap on life. Mind is a way to liberate life. Just now also, everywhere you go, you must control the mind. Your mind need not be controlled. Your mind needs to be liberated. But unfortunately, we are always thinking of controlling the mind. People are talking about, I want to become no mind. It's a very misunderstood concept. It took millions of years to evolve this mind. Why do you want to become no mind now? Simply because you are not able to handle the torture of your mind. If your mind was ecstasy, would you want to become no mind? If your mind was the means to your blissfulness, would you want to become no mind? Only because it's become a mess, you want to become no mind, isn't it? Only because you're seeing it as a barrier, not as a stepping stone, you want to become a no mind. Mind is not a barrier. Mind is a tremendous possibility. It is because without addressing and understanding the fundamental nature of the mind, we are trying to go about handling it, this problem has happened. Now, one of the biggest problems with the mind is, right from one's childhood, the mind has been imposed as to what is right and what is wrong, morality. This is the major problem. People have taught you what is good and what is bad. Because good and bad are very strong points of identity, very strong. Whatever you consider as good, you naturally get identified with it. Whatever you consider as bad, you naturally repelled by it. You having aversion to something and you having attraction towards something is the basis of identification. Whatever you are averse to, it dominates your mind. Now this is the nature of your mind. If you say, I do not want something, only that happens. In this mind, there is no subtraction or division. There is only addition and multiplication. You cannot take away anything by force from this mind. Now, this does not need any enlightenment. If you just close your eyes for a minute and look at it, you can see you cannot do anything by force. Now somebody told you, this is good, this is evil, do not think about the evil. Now that's a full-time job. There is nothing else going on. The moment you identify something as good and you identify something as bad, you getting identified with the good and having aversion for the bad is a natural process. If you have an indiscriminate sense of involvement with everything, involvement need not necessarily mean that you have to go and do something. You can just look at people and be involved, isn't it? You can just look at the sky and be involved. You can look at every life and be involved. You can close your eyes and still be involved. Involvement is not an act. Involvement is a certain willingness with life. You have become willing to the process of life. If you get identified, you are becoming unwilling to the process of life. You are only willing in selection. With the rest of the life, you are not willing. It is this unwillingness which is scaling down the aliveness in a human being. You just look at yourself and see, when you're 5 years of age, how alive you were and how alive you are today. It's gone down, isn't it? Yes. Yes? That is gone down, really gone down. With age, aliveness need not go down. With age, our physical capabilities may go down. Aliveness need not go down. If you're 100, you can be as alive as a child. Your aliveness is going down because you're committing suicide in installments. The method of committing suicide is that you become selective in your involvement. Involvement does not necessarily mean physical action. Involvement is just your willingness with life. If you take away the willingness, the process of life naturally becomes suffering. Whatever you do willingly, that's your heaven. Whatever you do unwillingly, that's your hell. What is a great love affair? If it happens to you, when you're unwilling, that becomes your rape, isn't it? What is considered so beautiful can become so horrible, simply because the difference is just willingness and unwillingness. So, whether your mind is a misery or your mind is a miracle, simply depends on this: are you allowing life to happen to you absolutely willingly or unwillingly? Is your life a love affair, or is life just raping you? That's a question. If you're being raped by life, then mind is a misery. If your life has become a love affair, life is blissfulness, mind is blissfulness too. So it is because of selective involvement, it is because of a certain identification with something or the other that you become selectively involved. When the other things that you're not identified with happen to you, you feel raped by life. Naturally there is misery, there is no other way to be. So if this circus of the mind has to become a symphony, if it has to raise to its crescendo, one of the foremost things is, suppose in the circus you have seen the trapeze artists. The trapeze bars and the trapeze ropes are always tied in such a way, only if they go full swing, they get to reach each other. If they're little unwilling, or any one of them is unwilling, circus will collapse, isn't it? They must go all out, all out, all out. Otherwise, it cannot happen in a beautiful way. That is so with you. Are you going all out with life? If you're going all out, that itself will settle the mind. You are going with indiscriminate involvement with life, with everything, absolutely involved. With what passion you look at your lover or your child, with the same passion you look at the sky, with the same passion you look at the tree, with the same passion you look at the earth, with the same passion you look at anything. If you have the same passion and involvement with every aspect of your life, mind is not a misery, it is a beautiful circus. Circus is a symphony of actions, isn't it? Tremendously coordinated, but it can become an absolute mess if that coordination is lost, if the trapeze artists are not willing to swing all the way. They want to be safe, so they will go only half the way. Now there is no circus, it's finished. So we did not say circus is a negative thing. Circus is a hugely coordinated symphony of actions. And that is how the brain is functioning. The accumulated mass of information, which generally we refer to as the mind and its activity, is all coming from that accumulated information. This information has a basis beyond your birth. We will not go into that, let's talk about that which is in your experience. From the moment you are born to this moment, everything that you have seen, everything that you have heard, everything that you have smelt, everything that you tasted and everything that you touched, everything that you perceived through these five sense organs is recorded in your mind. Whether you recorded this, whether it happened in wakefulness or sleep, it is still recorded. This can be very easily done to you. You are fast asleep, and I will say something to you. If we can do certain processes, you will see what you heard in sleep is still there, you can very easily repeat it. In hypnotized conditions, these things have been done as experiments, but in yogic systems we have always been aware of it. Yes. In India, we have been aware of this, you have heard many stories about this. We always thought the best time to put in the best input into a human being is when he is in the mother's womb. So elaborate care was taken about how a pregnant woman should be, in what kind of atmosphere she should be, under what kind of influence she should come, what kind of influence she should not come. She was not even allowed to meet certain people. Only those people who are most loving and wise and intelligent were allowed to meet her. Any kind of negative emotions, any kind of negative situations, she was not exposed to, because that is a time you can teach the child is in deep sleep, just forming. Because there is such a sense of deep sleep, it's very easy to teach. Now when you're awake, there are any number of distractions. You're listening to me, but you're aware of the body. You're scratching your body, you're looking around, you're doing this, you're doing that. When you're in sleep, all these things are absent. Your absorption is absolute. So everything that you have heard, seen, smelt, tasted and touched, wakefulness or sleep, is recorded. This information is there. Now, how harmoniously we use this information is the effectiveness of the mind, or how much of a mess this information has become is the ineffectiveness or the mess of the mind. To organize this, people have done various things. All kinds of methods and exercises are being brought about in the world. Yes, there are many ways to make minor corrections and make yourself little more effective than before. But if you really want to unleash the mind, not control the mind, if you truly want to unleash the power of the mind, the fundamental thing is your intellect should not be identified with anything. Then your perception comes to such clarity, then mind naturally organizes itself. Nobody has to organize the mind. It is very well organized, naturally it is organized. Only because the perception is so distorted, its function and its outcome also is distorted. In South, there was a king called Krishna Devaraya. You heard of him? Not very famous here? You have. And he also had not a minister but a jester. Tenali Ramakrishna, you heard of him? Oh, okay. Are there Andhra people? Telugu people? Okay, okay. తెనాలి నుంచి వచ్చినారా? లేదు. Okay. Recently in United States I met a doctor whose second name is Tenali. I was immediately excited about this. I thought, "You're from Tenali?" I asked. He said, "Yes, my village is Tenali." Then I was joking to him about Ramakrishna, but the unfortunate thing was he had never heard about Tenali Ramakrishna and he did not know that he came from his village. Maybe he went to United States too early. Anyway, one day Krishna-Dev Raya was having a haircut. The royal barber was giving him a haircut. He was civilized, not… And a crow came and sat there and started doing its usual caca. The barber stopped the haircut with arresting attention, just started listening to the crow. Krishna-Dev Raya looked at him and said, "What is this? What are you listening to the crow? As if you can understand what the crow is saying." He said, "Wait, Your Majesty, wait, he has a message." And very carefully heard it for a long time and then shook his head. Krishna-Dev Raya became very curious. "What is this? You understand the crows?" "Yes." "What is he saying?" "Your Majesty, this crow has come as a messenger of your forefathers from heaven. And what he is saying is that they are in heaven and uncared for. Above all, there is nobody to entertain them. There is nobody to keep them happy. They are there, everything is physically taken care of, but there is nobody to entertain them. So they're really longing for some help from you. That's why they've sent this crow as a messenger. We must send somebody to heaven to entertain your forefathers. How can we leave them like that unentertained? Your forefathers." Krishna-Dev Raya immediately became very emotional. My forefathers are bored and suffering because of lack of attention and entertainment? I must send the best entertainment. So let's see who is the best dancer, who is the best musician, who is the best whatever, all this. Then a few other courtiers arrived and all of them said, "Oh, Your Majesty, if you are willing, I am willing to go, but I can't sing for nuts. But if you want me to go and serve your forefathers, I will go to heaven and serve right now." Like this they built it up. But then they said, "No, for your forefathers, we must send the best of the best." How can we send? A musician, how long can he entertain you? If you hear him for 2 days, you finish with him. If you send a dancer, how long? If you see him for a few days, you're finished with him. We must send somebody who can keep them continuously entertained. Who better than Tenali Ramakrishna? He can keep your forefathers forever entertained because he's so ingenious. He is the best guy. Krishna-Dev Raya also agreed, there is nobody like Tenali Ramakrishna. He is the best entertainment. I wouldn't like to part with him, but my forefathers… He was in emotion. He said, "Yes, we will send Tenali Ramakrishna." Then Tenali Ramakrishna was called and he heard the story as to how he should go to heaven to serve the forefathers. Immediately he took on the act. "Oh, Your Majesty, I'm more than willing. This is such a honor, I'm going. I also know this whole thing, how to go." The barber had also received instructions as to how to send a man to heaven. The crow instructed how to send a man to heaven. They said, "You must make the man sitting facing south, and then you must get lot of sandalwood, camphor and ghee. The heap should raise well above an elephant, a full-grown elephant, and it should be only sandalwood, pure ghee and camphor. And keep the man inside, build this whole heap and then set fire to it. As it goes, this fire should burn for a minimum of 3 days, and then the man will evaporate and go to heaven and serve the forefathers." Tenali Ramakrishna said, "This is the correct method, this is the best way. I will go and serve your forefathers. It is just that, let me make the preparation. I want to purify my body and my mind and everything before I go there. I want to take off all the doshas in me. Give me just 30 days' time." A grand site was prepared, a huge thing going on. Tenali Ramakrishna personally went and supervised the whole process. And he only set up this whole thing with his trusted labor. He created the whole site the way he wants it. Krishnadevaraya was moved with Tenali Ramakrishna's dedication towards his forefathers that he is willing to go to heaven. The day came and Tenali Ramakrishna went into a haystack first, and then over that this whole hill of wood and ghee and camphor was built, and then set fire. 3 days it was kept burning. After 3 days, nothing but ashes were there. Tenali Ramakrishna disappeared. Many months passed. Krishnadevaraya wondered what is happening to his forefathers, because the damn crow did not come again and tell what is happening. Every day when the crows came, he asked the barber, "What are they saying? What are they saying?" This is not the crow, this is just an ordinary crow, not the messenger crow. After 8 months, one day, when Krishnadevaraya was in the full assembly of the court, Tenali Rama arrived with long hair and a long beard. And he bowed down to Krishnadevaraya, and Krishnadevaraya was overjoyed that Tenali Rama has come back from heaven. And he said, "What is happening? Are my forefathers well? Did you keep them happy?" "I kept them very happy, they've been splitting in their sides with my jokes, they're really enjoying everything. It is just that they have one problem, Your Majesty." "What is that?" He said, "There are no barbers in heaven. Look at me. Even I couldn't have a shave. And your forefathers for so many years, they're tripping on their own beards. It's become really difficult that they're carrying long beards around their neck, and they're really having a problem. They need a good barber. We must send the best barber." Of course, the best one is the royal one. Krishnadevaraya immediately said, "I will send my personal barber." The barber quaked. Then he came and fell at Krishnadevaraya's feet and admitted, "I did this horrible thing." Why I'm saying this to you is, once you're identified with something, your perception gets so distorted. From the day you are born, to increase your identity with your family, your parents have been campaigning, how you belong to them and what. To increase your loyalty to your community and caste and creed and religion, other people have been campaigning. To increase your loyalty and you're even willing to die for your country, some other people are campaigning. On different levels, people are constantly campaigning to ensure that you're deeply identified with something so that you will serve those purposes. Nobody wants you to be a liberated human being because they're afraid of freedom. They believe that if one is free, he may do irresponsible things. Only because one is not free, he does irresponsible things. If one is truly free, why will he do anything irresponsible? Why will he do anything harmful? He is not free in his mind, that is why he does desperate things, isn't it? He is too identified with himself and nothing else, so he can harm somebody else. If he is not even identified with this one, there is no harm coming out of such a human being. It cannot come out of him. So because of these campaigns, you get so identified and everything gets distorted. We can run a campaign to make you believe just about anything, I want you to know this. If we campaign hard enough, we can make you worship anything, we can make you hate anything, we can make you love anything, we can make you give up your life for anything. It is just that we have to work on your identification. How strong is your identity? That is how much you go, isn't it? Once your intellect is identified, mind is no more a harmonious circus, it's a mess of a circus. The whole system of yoga, the technology of yoga is only towards this. Right now, what we are offering as inner engineering is fundamentally just this. It's not a teaching, it is not a philosophy, it is not an ideology or a belief system or a religion. It is just a technology to create a distinction. If you go into these processes, what they're doing to you is just this. If you sit here, your physical body is here. What you call as your mind is out here. What is you is away from this. Once this little space between you and the activity of the mind, between you and the activity of the body arises within you, now mind is no more a mess. It is a great symphony, it is a tremendous possibility, it can take you to great heights. If this distinction is not there, it is this distinction which unfortunately got misinterpreted as non-attachment or detachment. Yes, you must detach yourself from your body experientially, not detaching yourself from family or people or whatever else from life around you. That's very easy. When they become inconvenient, you can detach yourself. Then a divorce is a detachment, isn't it? A divorce is not a detachment. Detachment means that you have disentangled yourself from the process that you call as body, from the process that you call as mind, because both these things are an accumulation from outside. This body, how did you gather this? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast, lunch, dinner and snack. How did you accumulate the mind? All the impressions that you received through the five sense organs became the mind. So these two accumulations, if you have to gather so much accumulation, naturally there must be something more fundamental than that within you, or what you call as yourself, should be something little more than the accumulation that you gathered. So once this distinction arises within you, once you liberate your mind from being identified with anything, then mind is a miracle. Mind is a spectacular circus, not a mess. If you have questions, please.
Sadhguru, what is the process for identification?
Now, whatever is generally being referred to as a spiritual process, let's understand what that is. You telling your prayers may not be spiritual. Why I'm saying this is, 99% of the prayer on this planet is only about, dear God, give me this, give me that, save me, protect me. That is a survival process. It's just that you're rooting your survival through heaven, that's all. So what you're referring to as spiritual is that in some way The experience of your life has transcended the limitations of the physical. The body is physical, the mind is also physical. When I say the mind is physical, it is just like, you can very clearly see that this light bulb is physical. But the electricity behind the light is also physical. The light that it throws out is also physical. Similarly, not only your brain is physical, the mind is also physical, the thoughts that it generates also is physical. Whether you're thinking about the God or the devil, it is still physical. No, I am thinking spiritual thoughts. There is no such thing. Thought is physical. And whatever you think is always coming from a certain accumulated information within yourself. Information is physical. Memory is physical. Gathering of information is always physical, isn't it? It may get subtle, but still physical. So, if your experience of life comes to a point where something beyond the physical becomes a living reality for you, then you're spiritual. In what way is it significant to make this happen? If a dimension beyond the physical becomes a living reality for you, then naturally the body and the mind are two processes that you handle sensibly. You will see, the moment this experience arises within you, the way your physical body reorganizes itself, its capability to reorganize itself is absolutely miraculous. You will see people go through one single initiation, when they come out, their faces have changed. Within a week or two, you will see the very way their body functions will change. The very way they look, you will see there is a difference. Because body's ability to reorganize itself, if you liberate it from a deep, crippling identity, is so fantastic. The same goes for the mind too. Mind will go through tremendous transformation that may not be visible for other people, but the body's transformation will be clearly visible because it can be easily measured. So what needs to happen for you to have a dimension beyond the physical alive within you is, right now your whole perception is limited to 5 sense organs. 5 sense organs in the very nature of things can perceive only that which is physical, is it so? You can see, hear, smell, taste and touch only that which is physical. That which is beyond the physical cannot be perceived by sense perception. So if your senses or if your perception raises beyond the sense perception, then that which is beyond the physical becomes a living reality for you. Why is it that it is not on in everybody? Why is it so? It is simply because for the survival process to happen, for your survival to be taken care of, 5 sense organs are more than enough. So they come to you at the very moment of birth and they're on. These 5 sense organs are more than sufficient for you to survive on this planet. So they are on by themselves. Only if you develop a longing to know something beyond survival, if you transcend the limitations of the instinct of survival, only then the other dimension of perception becomes open within you. Otherwise, they never open up. They just don't open up because you don't create that possibility within yourself. Right now, if you look at your life, every single activity that you're performing in your life is all about survival. Physical survival, psychological survival, emotional survival, financial survival, social survival, like this, many levels of survival, but it's all survival. So when everything in you is focused only on survival, the very nature of the instinct of survival is that it wants to build protective walls around you. You are many concentric walls actually. You will see these walls. If a man that you do not know approaches you, you have a wall there, right there for him, he has to stop right there. If your neighbor comes, you have a wall there for him. If your friend comes, you have a wall here. If your family comes, you have a wall here, but for everybody you have a wall, isn't it? You are many concentric walls, one over the other, because this is the work of the instinct of survival. It constantly goes on building walls of protection for yourself. And these walls of self-protection are also the walls of self-imprisonment. When it starts suffocating you, you want to break it. But your instinct of self-preservation is on in everything, so it won't let you break it. So, unnecessarily, life goes through a totally unnecessary turmoil. Because your identification is so strong with the physical body, there is a confusion between the two. The only thing that needs to be preserved in you is your physical body. Everything can be trampled down right now and rebuilt the next moment, isn't it so? No, you won't allow it. Your thoughts, your ideas, your emotions, your personality, if you are willing, we can just demolish it right now, this moment, and rebuild it the next moment. But no, if I step on your foot and say… if I step on your foot, you'll say, it's all right. But if I step on your idea, your emotion, your personality, you will be deeply hurt. That is your problem right now. The instinct of self-preservation has extended itself beyond its realm. Instinct of self-preservation is only with the physical body. Rest of it should be wide open to everything. But because of a strong identification with the body, you have made your personality also like a body, the mental activity also like a body, the thought structure also like a body, emotion also like a body. It is an emotional body, a mental body you have, and it hurts more than the physical body. Isn't it so? So it is because of this identification, a confusion has happened to the life within you. It is not clear-cut. Now your intellect cannot function in a sane manner. It cannot cut through and show you life just the way it is. It is distorting everything.
How you can live with the same lady day after day throughout your life unless you identify her your wife? And my second question is…
No, we'll handle one at a time. Is she here? She's here, okay. Recently, I was in a place where a Jewish rabbi was speaking. This rabbi is from Denmark and he was talking about some other rabbi, I don't remember the name, a very wise one who said this to someone. A man went to this rabbi and asked him, I love my wife very much, but when I walk on the street, every woman that I see, I want to do something to her. What shall I do? The wise rabbi looked at him and said, son, it doesn't matter where you work up your appetite as long as you go home and eat. Now, if being with one person is happening only because you have identified them to be something to you, it is a stable structure. It makes a society, but it destroys life. If you're being with somebody because you value that person, you're being with somebody because you love that person, you're being with somebody because you have formed some kind of intimacy and connection with that person, now it's worth being. If you've not done any of this, but you are staying with somebody just because somebody is your wife or somebody is your husband, oh, it is definitely a torture to be with those people. Being with your wife is a horrible thing. If she is a woman that you love, it's a wonderful thing. You can't stand her, but she is your wife, that is a horrible thing. A lot of people have done this to themselves. So, being a husband or wife is a social thing. It is not an individual thing. Individual thing is two human beings have built a certain relationship that they value. That is what is the individual thing. Somebody is my wife is something that you only tell somebody. If you believe she is your wife and she has to be this, this and that, then it is just torture between two people. It is only socially you tell somebody, this is my wife. Between the two of you, she must be your lover, otherwise you should not live with her. Yes?
Sadhguru, we are conditioned to 14 million frequencies and we see only thing which is within this space and time. Now polarity and identity are simultaneous things. You say get rid of all duality and we get rid of identity, which is physically not possible. And simply because we are conditioned to space and time. Have you ever gone beyond space and time and had the taste of eternal bliss?
Now, both space and time is a creation of your conscious mind. If you transcend the limitations of your conscious mind, there is no such thing as space and time. Modern physics is also working its way towards this direction. They're talking about 11 different dimensions in the same space. Yoga has always talked about 21 different dimensions in the same space. Many years ago, on a certain afternoon, till then I managed my time and space very well. On a certain afternoon, I happened to be sitting on a small hillock which I was involved with, which I loved, which I knew very intimately. Till that moment, I always thought this is me and the rest is the other. I handled the other quite well, but still this was me and that was the other. Suddenly I burst forth into an experience. I did not know which is me and which is not me. What was me was all over the place. The very rock that I was sitting on, the very air that I breathe, the atmosphere around me, everything became me. That doesn't make logical sense. Because if you want to make any kind of logical sense, you need two. Without two, there is no logic. And suddenly there was no two, it was all me. Everything was just me. I thought this lasted for about 10 to 15 minutes. But when I came back to my normal senses, about 4.5 hours had passed. I was sitting there with my eyes open, fully conscious. I was not in any kind of trance or whatever. I am fully conscious. But time just flipped, and I found for the first time in my adult life, tears were flowing through my eyes. Me and tears were impossible. But I've always been peaceful and happy, that's never been an issue. But here my shirt is wet with tears and I'm bursting with a completely different kind of ecstasy, which is just the body cannot contain. When I really shake myself to my normal senses and try to understand what is happening to me, The only thing that my mind could say was, maybe I'm losing my balance, maybe I'm just going off. But it is so beautiful, I don't want to lose it for a moment. The next time this happened to me, I was sitting with my family at the dinner table. Actually, it was, in my experience, just 2 minutes. It was only 2 minutes, but 7 hours had passed. This started happening. And one day I just sat down and I thought it's maybe 20-25 minutes, but 13 days had passed. I was sitting right there, eyes open, fully conscious. It never occurred to me that I should eat or sleep or anything. I sat in one place for 13 days, not with any effort, not with any intention, not with any attitude towards attainment or anything. I simply sat down and looked around. 13 days were passed. So time and space is very much the creation of your logical mind. Once you transcend that, there is no time and space. And you don't even have to cross time and space to be blissful. Blissfulness will happen to you in so many ways. Right now, I think there are lots of people here who are practicing Shambhavi Mahamudra. You sit down in the morning, 21 minutes, you become totally blissful. Drunk, but fully aware. Look into my eyes and see I'm stoned all the time, but fully conscious. This moment if I want I can flip, or this moment if I want I can be alert and conduct the situation the way I want. And if you were aware of the culture, as Sri Karan Singh was mentioning, Shiva is known as the Adi Yogi. He was inebriated all the time, he was drunk. At the same time, he's a perfect ascetic, sitting there in absolute meditation and drunk at the same time. This is what it means. And this is how all of us should be, absolutely inebriated but perfectly stable within ourselves. Now, the need for seeking something from outside will completely disappear. Once you're blissful by your own nature, your life becomes an expression of your blissfulness, not in pursuit of happiness. And that's the shift that needs to happen in every life.
You are my perfect mirror, you show me what I'm not. In the endless pit of what once was me, layer and layer you peel off me. The pain it is, but the joy it brings. So thank you for showing me what I'm not, for showing me